Imagine standing at the edge of everything you've ever known. Your neighbors, your town, the laughter of children playing in the streets, the smell of bread baking, the sound of music at nightfall. Now, imagine watching all of it disappear beneath water, forever. There was a man who survived the end of the world, not by accident, not by luck. He survived because one voice spoke to him when the rest of humanity had gone silent. His name was Noah. And what you are about to hear is the most dramatic survival story ever told. Long ago, in a time so distant it feels more like a dream than history, the world was a very different place. The earth was young, the soil was rich, rivers ran clear, the land was lush beyond imagination. And yet, something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. The people of this ancient world had forgotten something essential. They had forgotten how to be human. Greed had swallowed the markets. Violence had infected the streets. Deceit had become the currency of daily life. What was sacred had been mocked. What was good had been abandoned. And what was beautiful had been corrupted into something ugly. From the mountains to the valleys, from the coastlines to the deserts, the earth groaned under the weight of what mankind had become. And God looked down. The Creator, the one who had shaped every mountain with his hands, who had breathed life into the first man, who had planted every garden and filled every ocean, looked at his creation and was grieved. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Deeply troubled, not angry, not distant, troubled, like a parent watching a child they love destroy themselves. A decision was made, a terrible, necessary, heartbreaking decision. The world would be unmade and remade. But first, God would look for one man. In a world saturated with darkness, there was one man who stood apart, not because he was perfect, not because he was powerful, not because he was wealthy or famous or feared. He stood apart because of something far rarer. He walked with God. His name was Noah, son of Lamech, descendant of the great Enoch, heir to a lineage that had always sought the face of the divine. Noah was a husband, a father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, a farmer, a man with dirt on his hands and calluses on his palms. He was not a king. He was not a prophet with a golden staff and a following of thousands. He was just a man who chose every single day to live with integrity in a world that had abandoned it. And that choice, that daily, quiet, ordinary choice, was about to change everything. One day, God spoke to Noah, and what God said was the most terrifying thing any human being has ever been told. Noah, the voice came, not in thunder, not in earthquake, but in that deep, undeniable way that bypasses your ears and speaks directly to your soul. I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. Everything. Let that land on you for a moment. Not some of it, not most of it. Everything. The forests, the fields, every village and city. Every person who refused to change, every creature breathing air on dry land, gone. Noah must have stood there in that moment, the weight of what he just heard pressing down on him like the sky itself had lowered. He could have argued, he could have run, he could have dismissed it as a dream, a delusion, a trick of an overworked mind. But Noah had walked with God long enough to know, when God speaks, you listen. And then God said something that must have felt like a single candle in an ocean of darkness. But I will establish my covenant with you. A covenant. A promise. An unbreakable bond between Creator and creation. Noah and his family would survive. And then came the instructions. Build a boat, not a boat, an ark. The dimensions God gave were precise. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. That's roughly 140 meters in length, longer than a modern American football field, nearly as long as a modern cargo ship, 3 decks, multiple rooms, a roof, a single door on the side made of cypress wood, sealed inside and out with pitch, a thick, dark waterproofing resin to make it absolutely watertight. And then, the strangest instruction of all: bring the animals, 2 of every kind of living creature, male and female, to keep them alive. Now, stop and imagine what this looked like to Noah's neighbors. Here is a man, far from any ocean, possibly living in a dry inland region, who has started building a monstrous wooden structure, a ship the size of a warehouse, day after day, week after week, month after month. They came to watch at first, out of curiosity, then out of amusement, then out of ridicule. "Noah! Noah! What are you building, old man? A boat? In the desert? Huh? Has the sun finally cooked your brain? Where is your flood coming from, Noah? The sky? The gods must have told you something the rest of us can't see." Noah kept building. Can you imagine the loneliness of that? Every swing of the hammer, a declaration of faith, every plank of wood fitted into place, an act of defiance against the voices that said he was a fool. Every day that passed without rain, another reason for the crowd to mock and for Noah to doubt. And yet, he did not stop. His wife worked alongside him. His sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, joined in the construction. Their wives helped. Together, this one family built something the world had never seen and would never see again. The ark took decades to build. Decades. Think about that. Noah committed to something he could not see, could not prove, and could not explain for possibly 100 years. That is not just faith. That is extraordinary faith. And then came the animals, 2 by 2, male and female, kind by kind, the massive and the tiny, the fierce and the gentle, the creatures of the jungle, the mountain, the desert, the plains. How did they come? The scripture says they simply came, as if drawn by an invisible hand, as if creation itself knew what was coming and was preparing to survive. Lions padded calmly past wolves. Eagles folded their wings alongside sparrows. Bears lumbered up the ramp without incident. Serpents coiled quietly in their spaces. It was, by any measure, the most astonishing procession in history. Noah and his family gathered food, enough for every creature on that vessel, enough to last through whatever was coming. And when the last animal had entered, God closed the door. Not Noah. God. That detail matters, because once God shuts a door, nothing in heaven or earth opens it before its time. And then, the family waited. 7 days. 7 days of silence on that ark. 7 days of the world going about its business, laughing, trading, fighting, loving, completely unaware. 7 days. And then, it began with rain. Of course. How else would the end of the world begin? But this was no ordinary storm. The scripture describes it in language so raw, so precise, it reads like a geological event report. All the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. 2 sources, 2 catastrophes colliding. From below, the great deep. The underground reservoirs, the subterranean oceans, the water hidden in the bones of the earth, all of it erupted simultaneously. Like a planet bursting from within. From above, the heavens opened. Not a shower, not a downpour. A deluge so total, so relentless. It was as if the sky had become an ocean and poured itself onto the earth. For 40 days and 40 nights, it rained. 40 days. Within hours, the streets that the mockers had walked would have been ankle deep. By the next morning, knee deep. By day 3, the houses were disappearing. By the end of the first week, entire cities were swallowed. People climbed trees, they scrambled to rooftops, they ran for hills, then mountains, then higher mountains still. But the water kept rising. The scripture says the waters rose to cover the highest mountains on earth by 15 cubits, more than 6 meters above the mountaintops. There was nowhere left to go. Everything that breathed air outside of that ark perished. Imagine being on that boat. Inside, it was the sounds of animals, restless, anxious, alive. Outside, nothing but water, an endless, featureless ocean in every direction. No land visible, no birds in the sky. no horizon you could navigate by, just water. And 8 people, Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, their 3 wives, floating in the dark, trusting a promise. 40 days of rain. And then the rain stopped. But the water didn't. The ark floated for 150 days before the waters began to recede. 5 months on the open water, 5 months of feeding animals, of managing a floating zoo, of sleeping and waking to the same view, endless gray water in every direction. 5 months of wondering, is there anything left? Will the water ever recede? Did we do the right thing? Was this real? Is God still there? Faith is easy when the miracle is immediate. But what about when faith is a 5-month wait on a boat in the middle of a world that has been wiped clean? What about when there is no sign, no voice, no reassurance, just the creak of the wood, the sound of water, and a promise you received before the rain came? This is where Noah's faith became something forged, not just given. And then, on the 17th day of the 7th month, the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. High above the receding waters, the great vessel settled, grounded, still. But the water was still everywhere. Noah opened a window, not the door, not yet. He wasn't ready to trust what he couldn't see, so he sent a raven. The raven flew back and forth, but found no place to land. It returned. Then Noah sent a dove. The dove flew out and came back. No land dry enough to rest. The waters were still too high. He waited 7 more days. He sent the dove again. This time, in the evening, the dove returned with something in its beak. A freshly plucked olive branch. A freshly plucked olive branch. That tiny green leaf, wet with the receding floodwaters, trembling in a bird's beak, was the most beautiful thing Noah had ever seen. Somewhere out there, a tree was above water. And where a tree could grow, life was returning. He waited 7 more days. He sent the dove a 3rd time. The dove did not return. It had found a home. Dry land existed. The world was coming back. Noah removed the covering from the ark and looked out. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he saw earth, dry earth, ground, the surface of a world washed clean and new. The scripture says the earth was dry by the 27th day of the 2nd month of the following year. If you're counting, that means Noah and his family were on the ark for just over a full year. 1 year of floating, of waiting, of trusting, of wondering. And now, God spoke again. "Come out of the ark," God said. Just like that. After a year of confinement, of darkness, of floating between worlds, the door opened. And the world was on the other side. Noah stepped out first. Imagine what that felt like. The air, clean, scrubbed by a year of rain, fragrant with wet soil and new growth, the kind of air you breathe after a storm, but 1,000 times more powerful, like breathing for the very first time. The silence, profound. No city noise, no human clamor, just wind and birdsong and the rush of rivers finding their new courses. And the light. The world had been washed and the light came down on it differently. Fresh, golden, ancient. Noah stood on the side of a mountain and looked out over a world that had been unmade and remade. He was, in a very real sense, Adam again, standing at the threshold of a new beginning. And then the animals poured out. Millions of years of instinct unleashed. Creatures spreading across the new earth, filling the valleys, climbing the hills, swimming into the new rivers. The first sounds of wildlife filling a silent world. It must have been extraordinary to witness. And Noah, this man of dirt and wood and quiet faith, did the only thing that made any sense. He built an altar. Noah gathered clean animals and birds and offered them as a burnt offering on the altar. No Thanksgiving feast, no celebration party, no monument to his own survival. First, an act of worship. This is who Noah was. After everything, after the years of construction, the ridicule, the flood, the 5 months of open water, the year of confinement, his first act on dry land was to bow before the one who had saved him. And God responded with one of the most important declarations in all of human history. He established a covenant, not just with Noah, not just with his family, with every living creature on earth. He declared, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. Never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. As long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night will never cease." And then God gave the covenant a sign. He placed in the clouds, for the first time, a rainbow. That arc of color across the sky, red bleeding into orange, into yellow, into green, into blue, into violet. A signature, a promise, a reminder written in light. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant. Think about that the next time you see a rainbow. That arc of color isn't just refracted light through water droplets, though it is that too. It is an ancient promise, renewed every single time it appears. A God who keeps his word, writing that word in the sky where all creation can see it. A promise to the earth, to every creature that breathes, to you, that no matter how dark things get, the flood will not come again. The world will continue. Life will go on. Seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night will never cease. We tell Noah's story as if it's an adventure tale. The animals, the ark, the rainbow, and it is an adventure, perhaps the greatest adventure in human memory. But at its heart, this is a story about something more. It's a story about a man who chose to live differently when the world around him had forgotten how to be human, and how that choice set him apart at the most critical moment in history. It's a story about faith that looks foolish to the outside world. A man building a boat where there is no water in a world where it has never rained, but acts anyway. It's a story about endurance, about waiting on a promise when there is no visible proof that the promise is still active, about surviving a year of uncertainty because you believe in the one who made the covenant. It's a story about new beginnings, that after the worst thing you can imagine, after everything has been stripped away, after the water recedes and you step out onto new ground, there is still a future, there is still morning, there is still life. And perhaps most of all, it's a story about grace. Because Noah wasn't saved because he was powerful. He wasn't saved because he deserved it more than others. He was saved because God chose to save him, because of his faith, because of his walk, because there was a covenant in the heart of God before the first drop of rain ever fell. Grace. Unearned, undeserved by any human standard, and yet real. The flood receded, the ark settled, the door opened, the rainbow appeared, and somewhere in that ancient story, in that tale of water and wood and one man's stubborn, extraordinary faith, is a message that has outlasted every empire, every catastrophe, every age since the world was young. That even when everything falls apart, even when the waters rise, even when you are the last one standing, God does not forget. If the story of Noah moved you today, if it stirred something in you, made you think, or gave you the courage to keep going through your own flood, then do something for me. Hit that like button right now. It costs you nothing, and it tells us that stories like this matter to you. Drop a comment below. Tell us what part of Noah's story hit you the hardest. Was it the decades of building, the year of waiting, or that tiny olive branch that changed everything? And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss another story like this one. Because we're just getting started. More of the greatest stories ever told, more ancient heroes, more impossible faith, more moments that changed the course of human history are coming your way. Stay with us. The next story is going to be just as powerful. Until then, keep the faith, even when it's raining.